Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am Christa Hurchalla, the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Delegate Solutions. We are a premium virtual assistance firm, and I'm so excited today to be chatting with our friend and partner, Angie Grissom from the Rainmaker Companies. And Angie is the owner and Chief Relationship Officer at the Rainmaker Companies. She is consistently recognized as one of the most influential people and a recognized thought leader in the accounting industry. And her role in the firm really involves high energy, high level strategy and high energy strategic partnerships, thought leadership, consulting, and program and curriculum development for the firm. So today, Angie and I are going to be having an engaging discussion. She's going to be sharing her expertise on the topic of helping versus selling and how to build a dynamic culture of helping through focus on relationships. So welcome, Angie. So excited to be with you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Me too. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. I have a few questions to ask you, and I know our audience will be interested in this information as well. So when you ask your clients what they think when they hear the word selling, what do they generally tell you?
We will poll our clients many times, the up and coming leaders that don't have a lot of experience in business development. And people say, type in the chat box if we're doing virtual training, or if we're in a live room, we'll say, tell me what comes to mind when we say the word selling. And as you can imagine, Christa, we hear everything from panic to fear to used car salesman to stress and all of these things. Sometimes though, people will say opportunity and exciting and fun, but typically when we ask, when you hear selling, what do you hear? It's usually more negative, off the cuff. So
It's interesting, isn't it, how sales and selling has gotten this sort of bad rap, right? And this negative connotation. And I think maybe even more so with the pandemic, there's this spirit of helping others and actually at least initially, that feeling of insensitivity around selling, say in March or April, when people were going through all of these very challenging things and still are. So I think that the idea of helping has really taken off in terms of sales. Would you agree with that, with the pandemic especially?
absolutely. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, there were a lot of people that were afraid that they would come across as being opportunistic or,
Yes.
in poor form if they were to even think about selling, talk about selling. But I think Christa, I think it's the biggest opportunity we may have ever had in our profession in terms of stepping up as truly um, trusted business advisors, because has there ever been a better time to step up for your clients and really be there for them and help them? I don't think so. And I keep telling our clients, if your clients are not calling you asking questions that are unusual questions or more questions or needing more from you, then they might not be looking at you as a most trusted business advisor right now. But if you're getting those phone calls, don't be afraid to help. Don't be afraid
Yeah.
to get out there and have those discussions and conversations.
So that's a great segue into, if selling is in fact helping, which I agree it is, how can team members get on board with how to best help their clients?
Great. Well, we believe that selling is helping, and so when we ask our participants, when you think about selling, what do you think about? We teach them to respond with helping. We have a lot of fun with it. Selling is helping, and we teach them to respond in that way because we want them to look at what they do for clients in a different way. We talk about, why did you get into what you are doing? Why did you go into accounting? Tell me a success story about how you have helped a client, how you've changed the trajectory of their business, things like that. So the way to do it is through, first of all, being present, being in front of clients virtually. If not in person, virtually is great, through Teams, through Zoom, through other technologies. Be there, ask how they're doing, open up the dialogue. If there is a need, which there usually is a need, there's a problem that you can solve, whether you specifically can solve it, a partner, or even somebody in the community, Christa, that that you could connect them to can solve it.
Yes.
that is helping. And so we want to reframe the way we think about selling and think about how are we serving? How are we stepping up? How are we raising the bar individually for what we're offering so that we are that first phone call and that our clients look at us and they say, I know a lot of people that could really benefit from just having a discussion with you, adding value to each interaction. So selling is helping, but we are positioned in a way to help our clients. They're asking for it, they're begging for it, and we need to not shy away from that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think in helping in any way, whether it's professionally or personally, right? Because right now, these lines are all blurred, and you could be talking to a client about a professional issue they're having, and a personal issue could come up where you could also help and say, hey, I know someone that's going through that too. I'll send you a link after our call. And in that, you're building that trust, and that will of course build a relationship and ultimately helps with the business relationship, which ultimately leads to sales as well. And that's not the reason you're doing it, but that's just naturally how we as human beings operate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We find that a lot of times accountants and people in professional service firms underestimate the importance of relationship. They think about their relevancy in terms of their background. They think about competencies and things like that. But they don't think about that big relationship. And so we
Yeah.
talk, it's all about that relationship. So don't underestimate it. So I love your point about making it not just professional, but also personal.
Absolutely. Well, what, in your experience, what are some of the best practices in building a culture of teamwork and helping, really building that culture?
I think it comes down to collaboration. And so we could talk all day about collaboration, but if you're meeting with your team, talk about where are you now? Where do you want to go? As an organization with clients, use the gap analysis as an example, collaborate, get them on board so that people are actually on board with the plan. So it's a collaborative approach to getting everybody looking at how do we super serve clients? How do we super serve one another? The same applies with clients. So instead of coming to a client meeting with a checklist, I'm going to ask you A, B, C, check the box. It needs to be more of a facilitated dialogue, not a
Yeah.
presentation, but a facilitation. So gap analysis use with clients. Where are you now? What are some of your goals? What are some of your concerns? Where do you want to be in 3 months? Where do you want to be in a year? Makes all the difference. It sets up the relationship differently. And we believe that selling is a reflection of the way that we serve if we do it right. So you're meeting with prospects and they're saying, you know what, it's really fun to work with you and I like your style and I think we could have a relationship. That's the goal. You want to make
Yeah.
it easy to work together.
That's great. Yeah. And again, I think it's that feeling that, you really want to help me. You really care about my business. You care about my goals and priorities and how to help get me there versus you're trying to sell me something, right? Which doesn't feel good to anyone. We've all felt that before. So I love that. Are there any specific tools that you would recommend in terms of achieving that? Anything that comes to mind?
I think it's more of an approach than a tool. There are so many tools out there in MBA programs that you can find, anything from a gap analysis to a force field analysis for problem solving, a SWOT,
Yeah.
lots of things like that that work really well. I think it's just a matter of how do you present yourself with a client in a way where you are working through a problem? You're not scripted, you're not off the shelf, but you are truly a partner. We call it climbing the value ladder, going from commodity to trusted advisor. So I think it's a matter of positioning yourself in a way to say, I am your person. I want to help you, not being afraid to ask the questions that you don't know the answer to. A lot of people are afraid, to ask questions they don't know the answer to or maybe can't solve. Don't be afraid. Mix it up, change the dialogue, stay in touch with them, and bring in additional people that have different expertise so that you are bear hugging the client. That would be my advice in terms of the approach. And there are lots of different tools you can use, but if you don't have that approach, it's hard to bring those tools to the table. So
I love the bear hugging. That's going to be a term I take with me as a takeaway from this chat. Um, That's great. Well, this is such wonderful information. Thank you, Angie, just for sharing your experience and your expansive experience working on these areas with clients. And I'm wondering, you guys are always working on so many interesting things at Rainmaker Companies. Is there anything interesting you're currently working on that you want to share?
It's such a fun time. We are expanding our niche-based communities, as you know, adding a lot of content and programs and roundtables and tools for our communities. We are teaching business development in a virtual world around the clock right now, talking about the importance of business development during this time, which will carry over to next year. Really excited about a group of managing partners that I have called CEO Grow. We just had our meeting last Friday, very, very successful. All firms in our CEO Grow Managing Partner Roundtable, Christa, have had the best year they've ever had this year, to give you an idea of the caliber of firms we have in this group. So we're looking to expand that. And I'm personally working on a piece called Raise Your Voice around empowerment that I will hopefully launch for an AICPA program. Women's conference, and hopes to write a book on Raise Your Voice and things like that I'm really passionate about. So getting started on that,
Exciting.
Never a dull moment. So, yeah.
And we can't leave this out. What about your super conference event that's coming up, which is a September virtual event and also a December in person? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, sure. So our super conference is typically held in person in June. We moved the location around. Of course, this year it was scheduled for Nashville. Well, we had to transition a bit, and instead of canceling the meeting, we actually converted it to a virtual meeting. I think you guys were involved in that, and I'm talking about almost double the attendance that we originally planned because people were able to come virtually. So we did that in June. We have one in September coming up for a couple of hours. And then the December event is actually going to be virtual. So we're really, really excited about getting people involved in that, and resource members and partnerships involved in that. Great speaking opportunities for people. So super, super excited about that, and plans are underway. So that's a big one for sure. So yeah.
That's great. And I think it's so exciting. You mentioned the virtual and how it's really expanded your network and the access for people to actually access all the great programming and information that's shared at your super conference. So huge silver lining to this very difficult pandemic situation. So that's great. And where can people go if they want to either continue the conversation about the super conference, conversations with you, and the great work you're doing at the Rainmaker Companies?
Sure. Well, I am Angie Grissom. So Angie at therainmakercompanies.com. Our website is therainmakercompanies.com. Robin Brothers is our senior relationship manager. I have two amazing partners, Scott Moore and Adelaide Ness, who are gifted and talented and great. So, reach out to Adelaide or Scott or any of our team. Nikki Demers, we've got a great team. So get on our website, reach out to any of us. We'd love to continue chatting with you. So thanks for the opportunity.
Perfect. Great talking with you today. Angie, thank you for your time and sharing your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.